Storms returning tomorrow. My latest thoughts on our severe weather potential and that timeline coming up. Yeah, a lot of our thunderstorm potential actually coming in during business hours. So while a lot of us are at work or the kids might be at summer camp or childcare, whatever that situation is. But we do have the latest from the Storm Prediction Center here. Not a ton has changed with this. A slight risk issued for areas 275 loop into the north and west, whereas areas along and south and east of I-71 are still under that enhanced risk for severe weather. So that's level 3 out of 5. Level 2 out of 5 for the yellow counties there. So we are looking at a pretty good chance of seeing some strong thunderstorms tomorrow. The timing of this, some of our thunderstorms are going to start in the morning, closer to about 8 o'clock or so for some of our far northwestern zones, and then areas closer to the metro seeing some thunderstorms closer to about 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning. And then we get another round kind of into the afternoon. So anywhere from 8 to 11 o'clock in the morning, that is still going to bring the potential for thunderstorms. However, not as great of a severe weather threat. I do think heavy rainfall is something that we'll have to really keep a close eye on. But getting into the afternoon timeline, this is when we have the better setup for strong to severe storms potentially, especially for areas along and south and east of I-71. Again, under that enhanced risk for severe storms. That's going to be anywhere from about 2 o'clock in the afternoon through as late as about 6 o'clock in the evening. So with that impacts, I do think heavy rainfall is something that we're going to have to monitor very closely, especially because our grounds are still fairly vulnerable to any additional rain. If we happen to see what we call training thunderstorms, I do think that could lead to some issues, some localized flooding concerns. A lot of this is going to have some good momentum with it, which is good news. But strong winds will be another factor that we have to keep a close eye on, especially in that afternoon window, lightning, and then a low-end tornado threat throughout the afternoon as well. So here's an idea of what radar could look like by about 9 o'clock in the morning tomorrow. We've got these thunderstorms moving in from the north and west. They'll keep pushing further south, closer to about 10, 11 o'clock. And then into the afternoon, we start to see them kind of reignite and then continuing on, especially for areas south and east, throughout the duration of the afternoon into tomorrow evening. So coming up in a few minutes, I'll show you how this is looking out, again, going over those impacts in that timeline yet again, as well as what you can expect to follow this weather coming up. Ashley?
And Allison.
Yeah, Ashley, that's right. So this is the latest from the Storm Prediction Center for tomorrow. We do have that slight risk in that. Areas under that enhanced risk. So that's level 3 out of 5 for the likelihood of some severe storms that are going to roll through here tomorrow afternoon. I should also mention there are a couple thunderstorms that have started to go up for some of our far southern zones here. Tonight, none of that is expected to be severe, but you still are seeing tonight. We'll hold on to at least the chance for some thunderstorms out there. Here they are right here on radar, areas of Bracken County as well as portions of Pendleton County, seeing some of that heavy rainfall kind of rolling through. That at this point staying south of the AA, but I wouldn't rule out at least the chance of seeing some rainfall there, as well as areas over toward, you can see Carroll County, parts of Switzerland County in Ohio or in Indiana, also seeing some downpours moving through there. Again, for the rest of tonight, most of us are going to stay dry, but a few could see some of those downpours. Right now, they're kind of setting up for south of the 71-75 split in Kentucky. For tomorrow, that timeline for thunderstorms, I'm still in 8 to 11 o'clock in the morning. Then tomorrow afternoon, 2 to 6. That's when we have the better potential for seeing strong thunderstorms moving through. I think that's the best chance that we have of seeing severe weather. But we will have to keep a close eye on that heavy rain threat for both waves of thunderstorms. After that, things actually look great starting Wednesday. We dry out for several days heading into the upcoming weekend. Good news if you're heading out to Jazz Fest, it looks like it's actually going to be pretty decent outside this whole weekend. So for the rest of tonight, there's that potential for a couple of those thunderstorms, mostly for areas south of the 71-75 split. Overnight dry, temperatures falling down to the lows. Do you think it's going to be dry to start early on in the morning, closer to sunrise or so? But as we get closer to that 8 o'clock hour, we start to see some thunderstorms moving in from the north and west. These are going to keep Hamilton County and further off to the south, closer to about 11 o'clock or so. And then the big question mark is, can we get enough of a break for our atmosphere to kind of recover and allow for those additional afternoon thunderstorms to reach their full potential? And in that, I mean, for us tomorrow. Main concern is going to be that potential for damaging winds with the severe weather, but I do think prolonged throughout the entire day. We have to watch that heavy rain threat because our grounds are just soaked from all the rain that we've had, not just the last week, but throughout a lot of this summer. So we are watching for that potential for some heavy rain. That could lead to some localized flooding issues, and this is going to continue up until some off and on thunderstorms throughout the afternoon until about 6 o'clock Tuesday evening. After that, we start to dry out. That's going to bring us to that great stretch of weather. There was some nighttime rainfall in the 70s Wednesday, Thursday. Friday, starting to reach back into the low to mid 80s. Saturday, looks great as we head into the second half of the week, but we do have to get through tomorrow. It's a weather impact day with that potential for strong storms.
You saw Friday night, do you?
I do think we have to watch the heavy rain potential, but do we end up with seeing that much rain in a short period of time? That's something that at this point is looking to be unlikely, but we are going to have to watch very closely any sort of rainfall that we're getting through the day tomorrow, because I do still think that we end up with heavy rainfall, possibly for some communities in a shorter window, and our ground is so soaked and saturated from the last several weeks that any sort of rain we get, it needs to be watched very closely. So here's the latest from the Storm Prediction Center. Areas along in south and east under that enhanced risk rather. Level 3 out of 5 slight risk. That's the yellow. 2 out of 5 for areas including Springboro, Middletown, Hamilton, Cincinnati itself, Delhi over toward southeastern Indiana too. And I should also mention we do have a couple thunderstorms that have started to pop up across greater Cincinnati, mostly south of I-71-75, that split there throughout Kentucky. So we are seeing some heavier rain impacting areas around Bracken County. You can see that just outside of kind of right around Augusta, Falmouth. You did have rainfall, but that's starting to wrap up there. This is starting to make its way closer to the Ohio River. We also have another downpour impacting. Going to stay pretty quiet and dry. Tomorrow we will essentially have 2 waves of thunderstorms that we'll be watching. Heavy rain is a possibility with both waves of rain and thunderstorms, but I do think that morning timeline 8 to 11 has the lower severe threat, whereas afternoon storms between about 2 and 6 o'clock have the better potential for seeing stronger thunderstorms. Main concern there, aside from the heavy rain, would be the potential for some strong to damaging winds. So through tomorrow morning, here we go, 9:30, we've already got rain moving into southeastern Indiana. The good thing with this, unlike Friday, is that these storms are going to have some momentum, so they are going to be moving. But we have to see if we end up seeing any sort of training or back building with these thunderstorms, because if that starts happening, that is where we could have that heavy rain and localized flooding threat. Through the middle of the day tomorrow, can we get enough of a break between both rounds of thunderstorms? That's the big question, because if we can, then I think we're all systems go for seeing strong storms. If not, what we get into the afternoon might be a little bit less severe. So coming up in a few minutes, I'm going to show you my latest thoughts on this timeline for both waves of thunderstorms, as well as its impacts, and then the nice weather that's going to follow coming up. Ashley, take aim at greater Cincinnati. So this is the latest from the Storm Prediction Center. Again, not much has changed from it throughout the entire day today. We've got the slight risk for most of the Cincinnati metro and north and west, but areas far east and to the south and east of 71 are under the enhanced risk. So that's level 3 out of 5. So slightly more elevated potential for some strong to severe storms if you are south and east of I-71 for tomorrow. Right now, if you're looking at the sky, you might notice some clouds, especially back down to the south. We do have some thunderstorms that have started to go up here. Now some lightning impacting portions of West Carroll County, or East Carroll County, I should say, and then western Gallatin County along I-71. So that's going to be right around where the Kentucky Speedway was. And then we also have got some downpours over top of Bracken County starting to move into Mason County. Southern Brown County, you may also see some rainfall rolling through. This is not expected to be severe. This should all be pretty tame throughout this afternoon and this evening, and actually most of us end up likely staying dry throughout the rest of tonight. I still think tonight's going to be a fairly quiet night for a lot of us. You're probably still noticing a little bit of that haze or the murky sky outside due to the wildfire smoke. But what we have in store for tomorrow is going to be that cold front. We actually have possibly 2 rounds of thunderstorms rolling through. The first wave is going to be in the morning, anywhere from about 8 to 11 o'clock in the morning. 8 o'clock for our far northwestern areas, and then closer to 11 for the metro and areas south and east. This has a lower severe weather threat. I do still think we'll have to watch for an isolated stronger thunderstorm. Heavy rain is still going to be a possibility through tomorrow morning as well as tomorrow afternoon. So that is going to be a prolonged threat that we're keeping a really close eye on, especially considering everything that unfolded on Friday. We'll be watching that very closely. And then by the afternoon, from about 2 to 6 o'clock, that's our second round of storms, and that's going to have the better severe weather potential. However, that is if we can get enough clearing in between these 2 waves. If we don't see the clearing, then that afternoon round might not have as much of that strong wind factor that we're looking at, But if it does materialize into its greatest potential, I do think strong to damaging wind would be the greatest threat for tomorrow afternoon. Severe thunderstorm warnings likely going up. And then also that heavy rain threat is something else that we're keeping a close eye on. Again, that's with or without any severe storms. So for tonight, mostly dry outside. If you're in Kentucky, you do have a chance of a downpour like what we're getting right now. But I do think tomorrow morning is going to be a quiet start to the day, even though Futurecast wants to bring in a little bit of light rain. Not really anticipating this to be much of a concern. However, closer to 8, we start to see those storms moving in northwest. These are going to keep on pulling south and east throughout the rest of the morning. Here's 10:30 to 11 o'clock. We're dealing with moderate to heavy rainfall for parts of Indiana into the Cincinnati metro. That's going to continue to push south and east. And then can we get enough of a break between the two rounds in the afternoon? That is still a big question that we're going to be watching very closely. History says a lot of times when we get that morning activity, it kind of makes things really difficult to reach their full potential for severe storms in the afternoon, which I think a lot of us would kind of prefer. Maybe we don't end up seeing the severe weather for tomorrow, right? But there is at least the potential from 2 to 6 o'clock that some of these storms end up becoming strong enough that we would see some strong to damaging winds. A severe thunderstorm warning is certainly a possibility. Lightning and then a low end tornado threat still there for us for tomorrow as well. And then of course the potential for some hail would be there with any stronger thunderstorm too. So technically, yes, all modes of severe weather are on the table, but the two that we're going to be keeping a close eye on will be that potential for some of the damaging winds as well as the heavy rainfall. And then of course, that low end tornado threat, the hail threat too, we'll be watching and monitoring if we can see those storms really reaching their full potential. After that, look morning lasting throughout the afternoon, possibly even into those early evening hours as well. So right now across greater Cincinnati, it's pretty quiet outside, but we do have some thunderstorms that have gone up across areas of Kentucky, including southern Grant County, Pendleton County saw some rainfall, Brooksville, now in Bracken County, you're seeing a little bit of rain moving through there. No thunder or lightning at this point. We had a little bit of that earlier today, but that's kind of started to dwindle, and as the sun is setting or getting close to setting at least, we are starting to lose that potential for any additional rain for the rest of tonight. Tomorrow, a strong cold front takes aim at us, and that's going to bring that potential for thunderstorms starting in the morning into the afternoon. Looks like there will be 2 waves of storms moving through here. That second round tomorrow afternoon, if all things line up just right, has the potential to bring in some stronger thunderstorms, especially for areas south and east of I-71. So that's where we have the enhanced risk. So that's level 3 out of 5, level 2 out of 5 for areas throughout the 275 loop and to the north and west, including all of our southeastern Indiana communities. So for that, I do think that's going to be more probable that we see those stronger thunderstorms tomorrow afternoon. That timeline generally from about 2 to 6 o'clock. However, this morning rainfall could throw a couple of question marks in our forecast. So anywhere from about 8 to 11 looks like we have some early morning rain and thunderstorms moving through. This has a lower severe weather threat. However, I also want to reiterate and emphasize that potential for heavy rainfall both in the morning and into the afternoon. If we can get enough of a break between these 2 rounds of storms, that afternoon threat has that higher severe weather potential where all modes of severe weather are on the table. However, damaging wind and heavy rain are those primary concerns. So here's that timeline for thunderstorms marching through early in the morning tomorrow. 8 o'clock for areas north and west, the furthest north and west for southeastern Indiana, closer to about 10 to 11 for the Cincinnati metro, bringing anything from moderate to heavy rain. The good thing with this when it comes to the heavy rain potential, it's going to be moving. However, if we end up seeing training thunderstorms, meaning an area that gets repeated rounds of that heavy rainfall, even if it is moving, could deal with some localized high water issues. So coming up in a few minutes, I'll show you how the rest of the afternoon so far is shaping up, as well as those impacts that afternoon round of storms could bring coming up. Ashley could pack a punch, bringing the potential for severe weather. I'll show you the greatest impacts I'm most concerned about for your entire Tuesday and how the rest of the week is looking coming up. You're watching Cincinnati's WLWT News 5, and we'll be right back. Front's going to take aim at greater Cincinnati tomorrow, and that's going to bring the potential for some thunderstorms, some of which could be on the strong side. Now outside tonight, we've gotten a little bit of a preview of that in Kentucky. Things have remained sub-severe though, not anticipating anything any stronger than just these few downpours that we've started to see kind of kick up a little bit for parts of Bracken County, Falmouth, and then over toward Grant County too. We've had some of those thunderstorms moving through. It's starting to fade away though if you're along the AA highway there in Bracken County, as well as southern Grant Grant County, things have started to quiet down and dry out for you. Now, as we get into tomorrow, here's the latest from the Storm Prediction Center. Areas south and east of I-71. I think you have the best potential for strong thunderstorms tomorrow afternoon. This is where we have the enhanced risk set up. So this is level 3 out of 5. One step below that slight risk, that's the yellow for areas throughout the 275 loop, as well as southeastern Indiana, Butler, Warren counties, all under that slight risk for severe weather. So everybody has the chance to see some strong thunderstorms tomorrow, primarily in the afternoon. But there are some question marks with this forecast. It's not a slam dunk that we're going to end up seeing some of these strong storms. One thing that I think we have to be aware of all day long in the morning and in the afternoon is that potential for some heavy rain. Both waves, so we'll have wave number 1 arriving from about 8 to 11. And then that second round, 2 to 6, bring that chance for some heavier rainfall. The good thing with this is these storms are going to be moving. However, if we see repeated rounds of thunderstorms over the same location, that could lead to some higher rainfall totals, which could lead to some localized flooding issues, high water again. So we are watching for that potential for tomorrow. However, that low and severe threat for the morning time frame, again, it's marginal. I do think some thunder and lightning, certainly a possibility. But if we can get enough of a break between these 2 rounds of storms, I do think we're looking at a better severe potential for tomorrow afternoon, especially for those communities south and east of I-71. Now, if you're northeast of I-71, does that mean you're totally in the clear? No, not necessarily, but at least right now it's looking like the better severe weather setup is going to be for areas south and east of 71 there. Strong winds, heavy rain are going to be the 2 primary concerns, but lightning, loud thunder, and then also a low-end tornado threat in the afternoon, all a possibility for us. So for the rest of tonight, those thunderstorms that we've got, or some downpours that we've got in Kentucky, those are going to fade away in the next hour or 2. Overnight, we will be dry. Temperatures fall down to about 70, so a muggy start tomorrow morning. Here's 8 o'clock. We start to see those storms taking shape back out to the northwest. They're going to dive southeast throughout the morning, so that morning commute, not necessarily a soaker for the metro early, but if you don't leave the house until 9 or 10 o'clock, better chance that you end up running into some pockets of heavy rain, moderate rainfall, anywhere from moderate to heavy rain, a possibility with that first wave. Here's 11, starting to move south and east of 71. If we can get enough of a break, which you notice Futurecast was very quick to kind of bring those thunderstorms back into action. If we can get enough of a break, I do think we're looking at a better potential for severe weather. If we end up seeing these thunderstorms developing right away and we're kind of looking at a cluttered sky and cluttered radar all day long tomorrow, that severe weather threat is a little bit lower, but I do still think we have to hold on to that potential for strong to severe storms from the afternoon onward until about 6 o'clock or so. From there on, we will start to dry back out. That primary concern is going to be that damaging wind threat as well as the potential for more flooding. Then that tornado and hail threat on the low side for tomorrow, however, still there. So still not out of question that for tomorrow afternoon, we could see some of those stronger thunderstorms producing possibly, again, that low-end tornado threat. After that, fantastic.